The massive ship appeared in Earth's sky without warning. It was bigger than any city, blocking out the sun over half the planet. People everywhere stopped and stared upward, their phones forgotten in their hands. The world held its breath. Princess stood at the observation window of the great vessel, looking down at the blue and green planet below. She had seen dozens of worlds before this one. Most had surrendered quickly. Some had fought and lost. None had ever truly surprised her father's empire. "Another primitive world," her father, Emperor, said beside her. His voice was cold and certain. "They will bow within days." Said nothing. She had learned long ago that silence was safer than disagreement, but something about this planet felt different. The scans showed the humans were divided into many nations, always fighting among themselves. Yet when the Empire's message was sent demanding surrender, something unexpected happened. The humans stopped fighting each other. They unified. On Earth, Jin stood in a small room with leaders from every nation watching through screens. He had been a soldier once, fighting in wars he barely understood. Now he was a negotiator, chosen because he had survived battles that should have killed him. The leaders thought his presence would show the aliens that humans could not be easily broken. "They want an answer in 3 hours," Jin said, looking at the faces on the screens. "They're offering us a choice: surrender and serve their empire or face destruction." "We need more time," one leader said. "Time to do what?" another asked. "Our weapons can't touch their ship." Jin took a deep breath. "Then we don't use weapons, not yet. We use words. We make them see us as more than targets." 2 hours later, Jin stood alone in a white room aboard the alien ship. He had been transported up in a beam of light that felt like falling upward. Now he waited, his heart beating fast but his face calm. The door opened without a sound. Several tall figures entered. They looked almost human but not quite. Their skin had a slight blue tint and their eyes were larger, darker. They wore armor that seemed to glow from within. The last to enter was different. She was shorter than the others and she wore no armor. Instead, she had robes that flowed like water. Her hair was long and black, and her eyes were curious rather than cold. "I am Princess," she said. Her voice was musical and she spoke perfect English. "I observe negotiations for the Empire. Speak your answer." Jin looked directly at her. "No." The guards reached for their weapons, raised one hand, and they froze. "Explain," she said. "You want us to surrender because you have bigger ships and better weapons," Jin said. "But humans don't surrender because someone is stronger. We've survived ice ages that covered our world in snow. We've survived diseases that killed half our people. We've survived wars so terrible that we swore never to fight them again, and then fought them anyway. We survive because we refuse to give up." "Bravery without power is foolishness," said, but her voice was less certain now. "Maybe," Jin agreed, "but we're still here. Every empire that ever tried to conquer all of humanity failed, not because we were stronger, because we wouldn't stop fighting." For the first time in her life felt something strange. Doubt. This human should be terrified. He should be begging. Instead, he stood there like he had already won some victory she couldn't see. "The Empire will give you 1 day to reconsider," she said. "If you refuse again, the attacks begin." Jin nodded slowly. "Then I'll see you tomorrow." As the guards escorted him out, watched him go. There was something in the way he moved, the way he spoke. He wasn't acting brave. He truly believed what he said. That night couldn't sleep. She accessed the ship's database and began reading about Earth. She read about human history, their art, their music. She read about their wars and their peace. The more she read, the more confused she became. The humans had almost destroyed themselves many times, yet they always pulled back from the edge. They created weapons that could end their world, then chose not to use them. They divided themselves into groups and nations, yet they also created ideas like human rights that said everyone mattered. They were contradictions, violent but compassionate, weak but unbreaking, individual but unified when threatened. The next day, Jin returned. This time he brought something with him, a small data chip. "Before you attack," he said, "I want you to see something." Took the chip and loaded it into a viewer. Images appeared. A mother holding a child, an old man teaching a young one, people of different colors and languages working together to build something. A hospital where doctors saved lives without asking who the patient was. Artists creating beauty from pain. Scientists sharing discoveries freely with the world. "This is what you'll destroy," Jin said quietly. "Not just bodies, not just cities, this." Watched in silence. Her father had shown her many conquered worlds, but he had never shown her this. He had never shown her what was lost. "Why do you show me this?" she asked. "I'm not the one who decides." "Because you're watching," Jin said, "and maybe that matters." Their eyes met and something passed between them. Understanding, perhaps, or the beginning of it. "I will speak to my father," said. "I cannot promise anything." "That's more than I had yesterday," Jin replied. As Jin was transported back to Earth, stood at the observation window again. The planet below seemed different now. Not primitive, not weak, just different. And for the first time in her life, Princess wondered if the Empire was wrong. Her father would not be pleased with her doubts, but she could not unsee what she had seen, could not Jin's words, could not forget the way he had looked at her, not with hatred but with hope that she might understand. The Empire had conquered hundreds of worlds, but Earth, realized, might be the first world to conquer something in return, not with weapons or ships, but with something far more dangerous. An idea, a feeling, a question that had no easy answer. And it was already beginning to change her. Emperor's patience had run out. 3 days after the first negotiation, his warships fired on Earth. The attacks were precise and limited, targeting military bases far from cities. It was meant as a demonstration, a final warning. But humans didn't see it as a warning. They saw it as war. Jin was in a command center when the attacks began. Explosions lit up screens showing bases in different countries. Good people, soldiers who had families, died in seconds. His fists clenched as he watched, but he kept his voice steady. "They're holding back," he said. "Those ships could destroy entire cities. They're still trying to make us surrender without mass death." "Then they're fools," said. He was Jin's oldest friend, a commander who had fought beside him in 3 wars. "We should hit them with everything we have." "With what?" Jin's sister asked. She was a scientist, brilliant and practical. "Our missiles can't reach their ships. The few that get close enough are destroyed before impact." Jin stared at the screens. "Then we need to get closer, close enough that they can't shoot us down." "That's suicide," said. "Maybe," Jin agreed, "but it's better than waiting to die." On the Imperial ship, watched the attacks with growing horror. She had argued with her father for hours, begging him to give the humans more time. He had refused. "They need to understand their place," he had said. "Fear is the foundation of order." Now she watched as human bases burned and she felt sick. These weren't just military targets. These were people. People with families, with dreams, with the same capacity for love and pain that she had. She left the command deck and went to the medical bay. Her father had ordered that wounded humans be brought aboard for study. It was supposed to help them understand human weakness. Instead, saw only suffering. One human lay on a medical table, badly burned. The medical staff stood around him, taking notes but doing nothing to help. The human was unconscious, his breathing shallow. "Why aren't you treating him?" demanded. The chief medical officer looked surprised. "Princess, he is a subject for study, not treatment." "He's dying." "Yes, we are documenting the process." Something inside broke. She pushed past the medical staff and placed her hands on the treatment controls. She had studied medicine as all royal children did. Her fingers moved quickly, activating healing fields and regeneration systems. "Princess, this is against protocol," the medical officer protested. "I am a daughter of the Emperor," said coldly. "If you interfere, I will have you removed from this ship." The medical staff backed away, worked for an hour stabilizing the human's condition. His burns began to heal, his breathing steadied. Finally, his eyes opened. They were brown eyes, warm despite the pain in them, and recognized the face. It was Jin. He stared at her, confused and weak. "You," he whispered. "Don't speak," said softly. "You need to heal." "Why?" Jin asked. "Why save me?" Had no answer. Or rather, she had too many answers and none of them made sense. Because it was right. Because she couldn't watch him die. Because something about him made her question everything she had ever known. "Rest," she said instead. Over the next 2 days, visited Jin in secret. The medical staff had been ordered to silence about his treatment. As far as the Emperor knew, the human had died during study. Jin's body healed quickly under medicine. His mind remained sharp, and their conversations grew longer each time. "Tell me about your world," asked one night, sitting beside his bed in the dim medical bay. "Which part?" Jin asked. "The beautiful parts or the terrible ones?" "Both." So Jin told her. He told her about Earth's oceans, vast and deep and full of life, about mountains that touched the sky, about forests that had stood for thousands of years. He told her about human cities, chaotic and loud and full of energy, about how humans created music that could make you cry, art that could make you see the world differently. But he also told her the dark things, about wars that killed millions, about hunger and poverty, about how humans often hurt each other for stupid reasons, about how they sometimes destroyed the very planet that gave them life. "We're not perfect," Jin said. "We're not even close, but we're trying. Every generation tries to be better than the last. Sometimes we fail, but we keep trying." Listened, fascinated. In the Empire there was order, there was efficiency, but there was no growth, no change. Everything stayed the same century after century. "What about beauty?" asked. "Do you create just for the sake of creating?" Jin smiled. "All the time. We write books no one may ever read. We paint pictures no one may ever see. We make music in our homes just because it feels good. We create because we're human and creating is what we do." "The Empire doesn't understand that," said quietly. "We build only what serves a purpose. Everything must be useful or it's wasted effort." "Then you've lost something important," Jin said. He looked at her directly. "When did your people last create something just because it was beautiful?" Thought hard, she couldn't remember. Art in the Empire was formal, traditional, unchanged for generations. Music followed strict patterns. Even clothing was standardized. When had they stopped creating and started only maintaining? "I don't know," she admitted. Jin reached out slowly and took her hand. His skin was warm. "That's what we're fighting for, not just survival, the right to create, to love, to be messy and imperfect and free." Felt his hand in hers and something shifted in her chest, a feeling she had never experienced before. Her heart beat faster. Her breath came quicker. She should pull away. This was inappropriate, dangerous even. She didn't pull away. "Tell me about love," she said. "Romantic love. In the Empire, marriages are arranged for political benefit, but humans marry for love. Why?" Jin smiled sadly. "Because choosing to love someone, even when it's hard, even when it makes no logical sense, is the most human thing there is. It's saying that this person matters more than logic or benefit or even safety. It's promising to stand beside them even when everything falls apart." "That sounds terrifying," whispered. "It is," Jin agreed, "and wonderful." They sat in silence, hands still touching. Outside, the war continued. Humans fought desperately against impossible odds. The Empire pressed forward with cold efficiency. But in this small room, for this brief moment, there was only two people beginning to see each other as something more than enemy and conqueror. knew she was crossing a line that couldn't be uncrossed. Her father would be furious if he knew. The Empire would see this as betrayal. Everything she had been raised to believe told her to walk away. But Jin's hand was warm in hers. His eyes held no hatred despite what her people had done, and realized she didn't want to walk away. For the first time in her life, she wanted to choose something for herself, not for duty, not for the Empire, for her. Jin, she said softly, testing his name on her tongue. He replied, and her name had never sounded so beautiful. Outside, stars burned cold and distant, but here, something warm was beginning to grow, something that would soon be impossible to deny or control, something that might change everything. Weeks passed like stolen moments. Jin remained hidden in the medical bay while his wounds healed completely, visited him every night, telling the guards she was studying the human prisoner. They believed her because she was a princess, and no one questioned royalty. But what happened in that quiet room was far from study. They talked for hours about everything, brought him Earth books she had downloaded, and they read poetry together. Jin taught her about human music, and she was amazed that so much emotion could exist in simple sounds. She brought him food from her world, and he shared stories about Earth's countless cuisines. Slowly, carefully, they fell in love. "I've never felt this before," confessed one night. They sat close together, closer than they should. In the Empire, feelings are seen as weakness. We're taught to control them, suppress them. But this, I can't control this. Jin touched her face gently. "You shouldn't have to. Feelings aren't weakness. They're what make life worth living." "My father would say that's why humans lose wars," said, but she leaned into his touch. "We lose battles," Jin corrected, "but we haven't lost yet. And maybe the reason is because we have something worth fighting for. Your empire fights for conquest. We fight for love, for family, for the right to feel what we're feeling right now." Closed her eyes. "This is impossible. You know that, don't you? Even if the war ended tomorrow, we come from different worlds, different species." "I know," Jin said quietly, "but I don't care, do you?" Opened her eyes and looked at him. Really looked at him. This human who should mean nothing to her, who should be just another conquered subject. But when she looked at him, she saw someone who made her want to be better. Someone who saw her not as a princess or a tool of empire, but as herself. "No," she whispered, "I don't care." They kissed then, softly at first, then with growing passion. It was first real kiss, not the formal touching of lips that was part of imperial ceremonies. This was real and warm and made her heart feel like it might burst. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathless. "I love you," Jin said simply. "I know it's crazy, I know it's impossible, but I do." "I love you too," replied, and the words felt like freedom. They made love that night, quietly and tenderly in the dim medical bay. Had never felt so vulnerable or so complete. Afterward, they lay together, and she traced patterns on his chest. "What happens now?" she asked. "I don't know," Jin admitted, "but I know I want to face it with you." Outside their small sanctuary, the universe continued to turn, and in that turning, danger was approaching. Commander was old for a soldier, which meant he was observant and suspicious. He had noticed the princess spending unusual amounts of time in the medical bay. He had noticed the medical staff acting nervous when questioned. He had noticed that the human prisoner who was supposed to be dead was, according to computer records, still consuming resources. Was loyal to the Empire above all else. When he discovered the truth, watching through a hidden camera as the princess and the human lay together, he felt no hesitation. He went directly to Emperor. The Emperor's rage was cold and terrible. He watched the recordings showed him with a face like stone. When they finished, he was silent for a long moment. "My daughter," he finally said, "has betrayed everything our family stands for, everything our empire represents." "What are your orders, Emperor?" asked. "The human dies," said, "publicly, make it painful. Let the humans see what happens to those who corrupt imperial blood. And my daughter, he paused, something like pain crossing his face before it hardened again. She will watch. Then she will be confined until she remembers her duty. That night and Jin were torn apart by imperial guards. Jin fought, but he was outnumbered. Screamed and tried to use her authority, but the guards had orders directly from the emperor. Jin was dragged to a holding cell, was brought before her father. Emperor stood at his throne, looking down at his daughter. She had never seen him so angry. "Father, please," began. "Silence," his voice echoed through the chamber. "You dare speak, you who have laid with our enemy, who have betrayed your blood, your family, your empire." "I love him," said, raising her head defiantly, "and I'm not sorry." Descended from his throne. For a moment he looked old and tired. "Love, you speak of love. I loved your mother. I loved her more than anything in this universe, and she died because of it. She went to a conquered world to distribute aid against my advice, and the rebels killed her. Love made me weak, made me lose focus. I swore I would never let emotion cloud my judgment again, and I raised you to be stronger than I was." "You raised me to be empty," said, "to be a tool for the empire. But Jin showed me what it means to truly live, to feel, to choose, and I choose him." His face hardened again. "Then you choose death. The human will be executed in 3 days. You will watch as he dies, screaming for mercy that will not come. Then you will be confined for the rest of your life. Perhaps isolation will cure this madness." "Father, no," fell to her knees. "Please kill me instead, let him live." "He is nothing," said coldly. "He is less than nothing, and you will learn that loving nothing leads only to pain." Was dragged away to her quarters, which had been turned into a prison. The doors were sealed with force fields. Guards were posted outside. She was trapped. But she was not beaten. Sat in her room and thought. Her father believed her broken. He believed that watching Jin die would destroy whatever rebellion had grown in her heart. He was wrong. The Empire had taught her to be strategic, to plan, to find weaknesses and exploit them. They had made her smart and resourceful. They just never imagined she would use those skills against them. She accessed her private terminal and began to work. Her father had cut off her main access, but he had forgotten about the channels she had created years ago. Channels she used to observe the Empire's conquered worlds without official reports filtering the truth. She sent out a message, coded and careful, a message to someone she hoped might listen. On Earth, in a resistance bunker, received a strange transmission. It took her hours to decode it. When she finally read the message, her hands shook. The message was from Princess. It contained information about the Empire's defenses, weak points in their shields, codes to disable certain systems, and a desperate plea. "They will kill Jin in 3 days. Please help him. I know I have no right to ask. My people have hurt yours, but I love him. And if you help me save him, I will give you everything you need to fight the Empire. Please, help me save the man I love, and I will help you save your world." Sat back staring at the message. It could be a trap. The princess could be lying. But something in the words felt real, felt desperate and honest and true. She took the message too. "It's a trap," said immediately. "Maybe," agreed. "Or maybe it's a chance. The information she sent. If it's real, we could actually hurt their ships. We could fight back. And if it's not real, then Jin dies anyway," said, "and we're no worse off than before." Looked at the message for a long time. Jin was his best friend, his brother in all but blood, if there was even a chance. "We'll need every resistance fighter we have," said finally, "and we'll need to move fast." 3 days, said. "Then we have 3 days to plan the impossible." In his cell, Jin sat quietly. He knew he was going to die. He had known it from the moment the guards took him. But he wasn't afraid. He had felt real love. He had held in his arms and known complete happiness. Some people never got that in a whole lifetime. He closed his eyes and thought of her, her smile, her laugh, the way she looked at him like he was something precious. If he had to die, at least he would die knowing he had lived. But neither Jin nor his captors knew what was coming. A storm was gathering, a rescue impossible to imagine, and a princess who had decided that if the Empire wouldn't let her love, then the Empire would have to change. Or burn. The rescue mission was suicide, and everyone knew it. 50 human fighters in small ships, attacking an Imperial vessel that could destroy planets, but had learned one thing from years of war: the impossible was just the difficult with worse odds. The princess says their shield generators have a 2-second reset cycle when changing frequencies, explained to the gathered fighters. If we hit them at exactly the right moment, we can get through. And if she's wrong, someone asked. Then we die fast, said. But if we do nothing, Jin dies slow. I know which I prefer. On the third day, as the Empire prepared, Jin's execution was brought to the observation deck. Her father stood beside her, his face expressionless. Watch, Emperor said, and learn what happens to those who betray the Empire. Below, in a transparent chamber open to space, Jin was brought in chains. He looked small and fragile compared to his guards. The chamber would be open to the vacuum. He would suffocate slowly while both Earth and the Empire watched. His hands clenched into fists. She had done everything she could, sent the information, planned the timing. Now she could only hope and pray to gods she wasn't sure existed. Jin looked up at the observation deck. He couldn't see through the reflective glass, but he knew she was there. He smiled just a little. If these were his last moments, he wanted her to remember him smiling. The guards began the countdown. 30 seconds until the chamber opened. Any last words, human? Commander asked mockingly. Yes, Jin said clearly. I forgive you, all of you. You're just following orders. You don't know any better, but I hope someday you learn what love means, what freedom means, what it means to be truly alive instead of just existing. Some of the guards looked uncomfortable. These were not the words of a defeated enemy. 20 seconds. High above Earth, small human ships suddenly appeared from behind the moon. They had been hiding, waiting. Now they streaked toward the Imperial vessel at maximum speed. We have incoming, an officer shouted. Emperor turned from the execution. Destroy them. Shields are, the officer paused, confused. Shields are fluctuating. Someone's changing the frequency patterns. Inside her locked quarters, had finally broken through the last security protocols. Her fingers flew over the controls, inputting codes she had spent 3 days preparing. The Imperial shields flickered and changed, opening gaps that shouldn't exist. 10 seconds to execution. The human ships dove through the impossible gaps. Fighters scrambled to intercept, but the humans were already inside the defensive perimeter. Explosions lit up the void as both sides engaged. Abort the execution, commanded. All forces engage the attackers. But it was too late. A small team of human fighters led by had already breached the hull. They cut through corridors with weapons that should have been too weak to penetrate armor, but had given them the specifications, had told them exactly where the armor was thinnest. Alarms screamed throughout the ship. Soldiers rushed to repel the invaders, but the humans fought with desperate fury, knowing they had minutes at most. His team reached the execution chamber just as the guards were trying to evacuate Jin. The firefight was brief and brutal. 2 humans fell. 3, but reached Jin and cut his chains. Good to see you, brother, Jin said. Save it, we're not out yet. Emperor watched the chaos with growing rage. Find my daughter, she's behind this. But was already moving. The moment the attack began, the shields around her quarters had flickered. She had slipped out before the guards realized. Now she ran through familiar corridors, taking paths she had known since childhood. She reached the execution level just as team was fighting their way back to their ship. Guards were closing in from all sides. Jin shouted. He turned, saw her, and his face lit up even in the middle of battle. "Go," she screamed, "get to the ship." But more guards poured in. The humans were pinned down. They wouldn't make it. Made a choice. She stepped into the open, into the line of fire. "I am princess, daughter of emperor," she shouted. "By my authority, stand down." The guards hesitated. She was still a princess, still royal blood. They had been taught their entire lives to obey. "That's an order," commanded. "The princess is not in command here." Commander appeared, weapon raised. "She is a traitor." Fired, the shot was meant for Jin, threw herself in front of it. The energy blast hit her in the shoulder, spinning her around. She fell, and Jin caught her before she hit the ground. "No," Jin held her, his hands trying to stop the bleeding. "No, no, no." "I'm okay," gasped. Get out." The human fighters formed a circle around them, firing at any guard who approached. His voice crackled over the comm. "We've got a ship at the breach point. 30 seconds." They ran, carrying between them. Guards pursued, but the humans fought like demons. Every step was paid in blood, and human both fell. They reached the breach. The small ship was there, hovering in the gap, taking fire from all sides. Its shields wouldn't last much longer. The humans piled aboard. Jin carried, refusing to let her go. The ship pulled away just as a section of corridor exploded behind them. "Go, go, go," shouted. The pilot pushed the engines to their limit. They shot through the chaos of the battle, dodging fire from both sides. A fighter locked onto them, its weapons charged. Then another human ship rammed the fighter, destroying both. The sacrifice bought precious seconds. They broke free of the Imperial vessel and dove toward Earth, shields failing, hull burning. But they made it through the atmosphere. They crashed into the ocean, hard enough to shatter bones. But they survived. Rescue ships pulled them from the water. Medics rushed to treat the wounded. Jin wouldn't leave side as they worked on her shoulder. "Stupid," he whispered, holding her hand. "So stupid you could have died." "So could you," said weakly. "That's what love means, remember. You told me. Standing beside someone even when everything falls apart." Jin laughed through his tears. "I did say that." "Yes, you did." Above them, the Imperial vessel hung in the sky. Emperor stood at his window, staring down at the planet that had taken his daughter from him. "Sire," an officer said carefully, "the council is demanding an audience. News of the princesses. Defection is spreading across the empire. Some are saying if she could question our ways, perhaps others should as well." His hands clenched. The empire he had built his entire life was cracking, and it was all because his daughter had fallen in love with a human. "Destroy the planet," he said quietly. "Sire." "Destroy it," roared. "I want every weapon fired. I want that world burned to ash. If I cannot have my daughter, if she chooses them over her own blood, then I will remove the choice. End THEM." The officers hesitated. Destroying an entire planet was extreme even for the Empire, but the Emperor had given an order. The great ship's weapons began to charge. Enough power to crack a world, enough to end billions of lives. On Earth, alarms blared. Every screen showed the same thing, the Imperial ship preparing to fire. Saw it too from her hospital bed. She tried to sit up, gasping with pain. "No, father, no." Jin held her. "It's okay, we're together, that's enough." "It's not enough," cried. "Everyone will die because of me." She struggled to her feet, pushing past doctors and Jin's protests. She stumbled to a communications console and opened a channel. She didn't know if anyone would see it, didn't know if it would matter. But she had to try. "Citizens of the Empire," said, her voice shaking but clear, "I am Princess. You have been told I am a traitor, that I have betrayed everything we stand for. But I ask you, what do we stand for? Conquest, fear, the death of entire worlds. Is this what our civilization has become?" Her image was broadcasting across every Imperial channel, across every conquered world. Millions, billions watched. I fell in love with a human, continued, and through him I learned what we have forgotten: compassion, choice, the courage to create instead of destroy. My father is about to kill billions because one of them made me feel alive for the first time in my life. Is this the empire you want to serve? Is this the legacy you want to leave? The weapons continued charging, but something was happening across the empire. On conquered worlds, people were watching. On imperial vessels, soldiers were watching, and for the first time in centuries, they were asking questions. Emperor saw his daughter on every screen, heard her words, saw her bleeding and defiant and unbroken. And he realized he had already lost everything that mattered. The weapons were fully charged. Every screen on Earth showed the Imperial ship's guns pointed at the planet. People held each other. Parents held their children. The world held its breath. Emperor's hand hovered over the firing control. One touch and Earth would burn. His daughter would die with the humans she had chosen over her own family. The thought made his chest hurt in a way he hadn't felt since his wife died. "Fire," he said quietly. Nothing happened. "Sire, the weapon systems are not responding," an officer reported, panic in his voice. On screens across the empire, something was happening. Imperial soldiers on different ships were refusing orders. Officers were arguing with their commanders. Entire crews were standing down. "What is this?" demanded. "It's a mutiny, sire," commander said, his voice hollow. They're saying if you kill the princess, they won't follow you anymore." Stared at the screens. 50 ships had just gone dark, refusing to fire. Then 100, then more. Centuries of absolute obedience were cracking like ice in spring. And in the background of every screen's message played again and again. Her bloodied face, her defiant eyes, her simple question: is this the empire you want to serve? An admiral appeared on the main screen, broadcasting from her flagship. "Emperor, this is Admiral. I have served the Empire for 40 years. I conquered 12 worlds in your name. But I will not destroy a planet because your daughter fell in love. I will not kill billions because you are angry. Stand down, or we will stand you down." Other admirals appeared one by one. Generals, commanders, even some council members, all saying the same thing. Emperor looked at the faces of people who had served him faithfully, who had believed in the empire, and he saw his daughter in every one of them, questioning, choosing, refusing. "When did I lose control?" he whispered. "You never had it," said quietly. "We followed because we believed, because we thought the empire made us strong, but the princess showed us something stronger: choice, love, the courage to say no." Sat down heavily in his throne. He suddenly looked very old and very tired. "Open a channel to Earth," he said. On Earth, in the hospital where was recovering, a screen flickered to life. Emperor's face appeared. He looked directly at his daughter. He said just her name, no title, no formality. "Father," she replied. They stared at each other across the distance of space and pain and broken trust. "I cannot let this go unpunished," said. "You betrayed the empire." "Yes," agreed, "I did, and I would do it again." "I know," closed his eyes. "Your mother would have done the same. She always chose love over logic, compassion over strategy. I thought it made her weak. But watching you now, bleeding but unbroken, I wonder if I was wrong about what makes us strong." "Father, I am abdicating," said. The words came hard, but once started, they flowed. Effective immediately. The council will choose new leadership. Perhaps they will be wiser than I was. Perhaps they will remember that an empire built only on fear cannot last. "What will you do?" asked softly. "I don't know," admitted. "For the first time in my life, I truly don't know, but I will not destroy Earth. I will not kill my daughter even if she is lost to me." "I'm not lost," said. "I'm found. For the first time, I'm really found." Nodded slowly. "Then I suppose I should be happy for you, even if I don't understand." The screen went dark. Jin, who had been standing beside through it all, let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. Is it over? Is it really over? Not yet, said, but it's beginning. The next weeks were chaos. The empire fractured into factions. Some wanted to continue the old ways. Some wanted reform. Some wanted democracy. It would take years, maybe decades, to sort out. But Earth was safe. The treaty was signed in a ceremony broadcast across both worlds. Humans and would live in peace, would share technology and knowledge, would learn from each other. Gave up all claim to any imperial title. She chose to stay on Earth. The planet she had once come to conquer had become her home. Jin recovered fully from his wounds. So did, though she would always have a scar on her shoulder. She wore it proudly, a reminder of the day she chose love over empire. 6 months after the treaty, they were married in a small ceremony on a beach. Humans and attended together, stood as best woman, stood with Jin. Even a few imperial soldiers who had defected came, curious about this thing called a wedding. You know this won't be easy, Jin said as they stood together, waves lapping at their feet. 2 different species, 2 different worlds. People will always question us. Let them question, said, taking his hands. We'll show them the answer. They kissed as the sun set over the ocean. Human and guests cheered together. Music played. Human songs mixed with harmonies, creating something new and beautiful. That night, lying together in their small home by the sea, placed Jin's hand on her stomach. I need to tell you something, she said. Jin looked at her, confused, then understanding dawned. You're pregnant, confirmed. The doctors say it shouldn't be possible. Different species, different biology, but life, they're learning, finds a way. Jin laughed, then cried, then kissed her deeply. A baby, our baby. Half human, half, said. A symbol of what we can become when we choose love over fear. What do you think will happen, Jin asked, when people find out? Some will be angry, some will be afraid, some will say it's wrong or impossible or dangerous, smiled. But some will see hope. They'll see that we're not as different as we thought, that if 2 species can create life together, maybe they can build a future together. Jin pulled her close. I never thought I could be this happy. When your ships first arrived, I thought it was the end of everything. Instead, it was the beginning. For me too, said. I was so empty before, just a tool for my father's empire. You showed me what it means to be whole, to choose, to love. They lay together in the darkness, listening to the waves. Above them, stars shone cold and bright. Somewhere among those stars, the empire was changing, struggling to become something new. Conquered worlds were demanding freedom. Old ways were being questioned. And at the center of it all was a simple story. A princess and a negotiator, an alien and a human, 2 people who fell in love when they should have been enemies. In the morning would come to examine, fascinated by the impossible pregnancy. Would arrive with news from the new council, which was slowly, painfully learning democracy. Life would continue with all its complications and challenges. But for now, they were just 2 people in love, holding each other in the dark, feeling their child grow between them. The future was uncertain, dangerous even, but it was also full of possibility. And that was enough. 10 years later, a small girl sat on the same beach, building castles in the sand. Her skin was a unique shade, not quite human pale, not quite blue. Her eyes were large and warm, seeing the world with wonder. Mom, Dad, look, she called, pointing at a ship descending from the sky. Jin and came to stand beside their daughter. The ship was but bore new markings, the symbol of the alliance they called it now, not empire, not conquest, alliance. Admiral emerged from the ship, smiling. She had led the reforms, transforming the military from a force of oppression into one of protection. I came to ask a favor, said Tu. The new council wants you to speak, to tell your story to the young ones who are learning a different way. Will you? Looked at Jin, at their daughter, at the beach where they had built a life. "Yes," she said, "I'll speak, but not just about the rebellion, about what came after, about building instead of destroying, about choosing love when hate would be easier." "That's exactly what we need," said. Later, as the sun set again on that same beach, their daughter asked, "Mom, tell me the story again, about how you and Dad met." Jin laughed. "You've heard it 100 times. But I like it," the girl insisted. So told the story again, about a princess who came to conquer and found something better, about a human who refused to surrender even when he should, about how love changed an empire and saved a world. And sitting there on the beach, watching their daughter's eyes grow wide with wonder at a story she already knew by heart, realized something. She had risked everything for love, her title, her family, her life. People had said she was foolish, that the cost was too high. But looking at Jin, at their daughter, at the peaceful sky where human and ships traveled together in friendship, knew the truth. She hadn't risked everything for love. She had given up nothing and gained everything. And that made all the difference.